So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Sara Defibaugh. I am currently a senior, going to be graduating, and I have been involved in Senate since the end of my sophomore year. So I got involved in Senate because when the previous year's executive team, so Hannah Klauser, Courtney Mule, Stephen, they wanted to really put a focus on PR. So they put up a form basically for people to apply for the PR position, and I was like, you know what, might as well. It's different. I'm really interested in government. We'll see what happens. So I applied, interviewed, and got it. It really did change my college experience. I was not expecting what I was getting myself into, but it turned out to be great. So I've just been the director of public relations all through, so for 2 years now. So the director of public relations position, when I was first given it, the PR team was basically non-existent. There was a foundation of PR and social media for Student Senate, but it was not developed. It was very new. Not much had been done with it yet. So when I came in, it was really my job of building the internal sense of public relations within Senate and really expanding that so that students were aware that there is a Student Senate on campus and that they do represent them and can represent their needs. So when I came in, my first focus was the internal part of Senate and building an internal public relations and communication structure. And then once I did that, I was really able to focus efforts on external affairs and representing Senate in a creative aspect and not just internally. So I would say that even though I have grown the public relations sense within Senate, there's a lot to build off of. Like I said, my first year was really internal focus. This past year has really been an external focus in working with media and journalists, but I'd really like to see it expanded to something where it reached out to a lot more students and not just a base of internalized communications and to the media. So I guess just building their social media presence. This has been the first year that we've held Twitter chats. It's been the first year that we have held press conferences for the media. Really not just building on our presence, but our brand. So I feel like when people think of Senate, they have an idea of what Senate is now, and that was not what people had in mind before. Now people are aware that we do have a Student Senate, as before when I first came into the position, not many people knew that we even had a Senate. Especially with the elections that happened last year. I ran PR for Greenlight, the ticket that is now in office, and it was just a great experience to see people come up and say, so what is Senate, and teach them about that. And ever since Greenlight was put into office, the executives now and the current representatives and our staff, we've all done a great job at branding who Student Senate is, and that's something I've been really proud of this past year, is really working on that. The other thing is building an internal public relations team. So before, it was just a few of us doing everything for Student Senate, but now it's an actual team of people who I can build off and delegate work to, and so that's been really helpful. So I just feel very proud because I feel like this has become an experience that works for people of all kinds of majors. Whatever major you are, you can find a place in Student Senate, and if whatever major you are creatively, you can find a space on my team. So that's been really great. That's an interesting question. So what a lot of people don't know is that a lot of public relations is analytics and marketing, audience targeting, I should say. So you really have to understand who you're reaching out to. It's not just like a big broad base of students. Like there are specific people that you interact with. There's an audience that you interact with, an audience that you're not reaching. And so what I do with analytics is I see who is interacting with us and who is not interacting with us and how we can better reach those students. Also with analytics, it really shows our growth. So I don't have anything off the top of my head right now, but there has been a growth from engagement on our social media platforms from 2 years ago to now, last year to now, and you can really see the improvement. So it's nice to have those analytics to see where you need to go and what audiences you need to reach and to grow from there. The transition period is kind of weird. You kind of have to get a feel for who you're going to be representing. But once you get into the swing of things, I would say definitely focus on hitting the audience that we have not been able to hit yet, because those are a lot of people who do need Senate's help but don't know how to reach out to them, or don't know if they feel comfortable enough yet to reach out to them. So making sure that Senate is a very friendly, inclusive environment, and that really comes across on our social media pages and on how we brand ourselves, I think that's something to really focus on. That is for sure. As a representative of Senate, you are representing a brand. You are representing not just a brand, but you are representing a government body that represents all the entire high university community. So with that in mind, you always have to be respectful of all of your constituents, not just a select few or just the select people whose ideals that you or values that you align with as well. You have to be thinking of a larger picture and not just yourself. And so it's also important because you have to remember to remain respectful and to be a person that other people can look up to. You have to be a leader. And so it's hard sometimes when you have someone who comes in who doesn't want to uphold those ideals of the body that they're a part of. And the question is, how do you navigate around maybe a quote that gets said that is not a great representation of Senate? How do you get around someone who maybe isn't putting in as much effort, and that shows? Because there have been cases where we get complaints about like specific Senate representatives, not just outside Senate, but within Senate, because they just aren't doing their job and they aren't fulfilling their requirements and being there for their constituents. And how do you make sure that that doesn't reflect on Senate as a whole? So there is definitely concern there. Thankfully, in my position, I work really closely with the GA. So Todd Simmons right now is our GA, and he's great to work with. We are able to sit down and come up with a great plan of action when those things occur, and how to have Senate bounce back and continue to be that strong source of Bobcat spirit and Bobcat pride, in a sense that we are here for the students always, every time of the day, and just being able to show that one person does not speak for us as a whole. So I don't work a lot with the administration. That's mainly the executive's job, and that's Todd's job. But like with Todd, like our GA, so every time anyone who holds my position will work very, very closely with the GA. You work closely with the GA, and then you also work closely with the execs because you are on leadership team. So you hold a pretty high position up in Student Senate, and you don't really realize it until you're there, because you are in charge of representing everyone and every commission, staff, judicial panel, everything. And so that can be a little challenging at times when other people have a lot of voices. But working with the execs, you really have to get a feel of how they operate, and then bounce off of that and kind of figure out a way of, I guess, making sure that the brand and messages that you want to get across for your company still get across no matter who is in the executive office. Because with PR, you will always have the same message, you will always have the same set of standards, no matter who comes through the office. And you have to make sure that you're able to work with those people and make sure that they understand that, and kind of work in a way that you can get them to understand it, because everyone's different. But with the GA, it makes it a lot easier because I've had Javanto and Todd, the two GAs that I've worked with, have been fantastic at that. We're able to sit down and have a conversation about what is the PR of Student Senate, who Student Senate is, and how that brand is shown across campus. And we have really great conversations about where I'm coming from, but also where they want to see us go. And so that's great because the GA really is the person who's going to progress that. I mean, something else that I'm really proud of that we worked on this year is the website. So Todd and I took a lot of time out to really start this new website for Student Senate, because it was something of an importance for anyone who has seen the old website. And made that a focus and worked together to show progression there and to grow Student Senate in that way. I do work a lot with the media. So the media are people that I do work with just because the Post has someone that comes and covers Student Senate every week. The New Political has someone that covers Student Senate every week. But then like the Athens News, the Athens Messenger, they'll have people cover it. And we've been trying to get other publications on campus to come and cover Student Senate because it is important and it is a body that more students need to know about. So I work with them to hold press conferences. I send them statements. This year I've been sending WOUB statements, which has been great. And so we've been trying to just make stronger connections with the press just so they are aware that they can reach out to us about questions, and like if we have questions we can reach out to them. So the big part of PR is like just building those relationships with journalists, because you want to have a very productive communication. You want to have productive communications with them, productive relationship with them, so that you both benefit in the end. So something that I feel like we've accomplished very well is getting across who Student Senate is to the general student body. One way that we did this is through the newsletter. So that's that was a goal of mine going into Student Senate. We've been doing this newsletter now for like about a year and a half, I would say, and it goes out to the entire student body, so like 25,000 students or something like that. And it talks about events that we have going on. It talks about open positions, ways to get involved. It sends a letter from our president or vice president or treasurer or whoever. We have them switch out when they're going to write the little letter to everyone. So the newsletter is a big way that we have found that we've been able to communicate with students and that we've been able to get ourselves known, which has been fantastic. In general, too, working with the executives to brand Student Senate in our social media. So all the executives I've worked with have a big respect for social media, because I know that's really new to a lot of people and it's a new way for businesses to brand themselves, and sometimes it's not always put as an importance, but communications is important, because that's how you're going to get people to know about who you are. It's going to be a way to communicate with your constituents in a way that they might not be able to communicate with them otherwise. And so that's really been main importance and something that I'm proud of, that we have taken steps towards improving. Big challenges is when there's big issues on campus. So last year there was controlled carry on campus, and that was a big conversation. They were voting on it. The school's voting whether or not we were going to let kids bring their controlled carry into classrooms, into university buildings, and Student Senate actually held a referendum on this to get a feel for what their constituents were feeling. And so that was a very rushed process. It was all happening within I think 2 weeks. And so my job was to make sure that students knew that we were holding open forums, that this was happening, that they were going to be voting on this. And voter turnout for the referendum was actually higher, very well higher than any other Student Senate election we've ever had. And so that was a big success for me and the exec team last year, because it showed that people do care and they do pay attention to Senate, and that's something we want to continue on as we move forward. And that's a goal that I would set for the person who's in my position next year, is to continue that progression, especially when it comes to voting, because we do want kids to vote and we do want kids to know that Student Senate is here for them. So I can definitely see my position changing. I feel like that's just how it is in my world. Things are always changing, always moving, especially as digital changes. I would say something that I would like to see change is a more refined structure of the media team. The past 2 years have been the first 2 years that we've had a media team, and we've tried it out in 2 different ways. And I would say that we're still trying to find a way that's productive, not just to the people on the team, that they're getting work out that they're proud of and work out, their position is important, but also we want to make the team more cohesive. And so just finding a way to do that. And a lot of that, I will say, when it comes to internal PR, a lot of it does depend on other external factors. So it depends on who's in Senate at the time. It depends on the executives. It depends on how much work is actually coming to us, which makes it difficult, because with external public relations teams, they're always going to be having work. There's always going to be new projects. With internal public relations, it's not always true. And so I think not only refining the media team, but also the way that people communicate with the media team in Senate, and really opening up that line of communication and being like, hey, if you need graphics for an event done, if you need an event planned, come to us for that. Right now, one of my event planners, Megan, is working on an event with the Red Cross that's going to be coming up here in March, and it's great. great. She's doing great work, and it's important that we have her, or else that would have fallen onto me. And as a director of public relations, yeah, I mean, my job is to make sure that public relations stuff gets done, and that I'm in charge of making sure that if someone falls through, I pick it up. But I also have a lot on my plate, so it's nice to be able to delegate work and make sure that that goes to someone else, and I can take care of the logistics behind it, and the social media behind it. And then she is like our line of communication. So I'd really like to see the team refined. I'd also, like I mentioned before, is to have a line of communication between people who don't really care about Senate and Senate. I'd like to see more people care about Senate, and I'd like to see whoever is in my position to find a way to do that. And like I said, you can do that through analytics and research, but it also comes across in our branding and our marketing. And I think that that is something to really put an importance on next year. For anyone who's interested in PR and Senate, I mean, definitely, I mean, do Senate then if you're interested in PR, because it like gives you another perspective that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. We do have a great advertising agency, student-run advertising agency on campus called 1804. So anyone who isn't interested in PR should definitely join that. I just went a different direction, and I decided that I wanted to do something a little different, and that's why I decided to do Senate, because I wanted to kind of step out of what everyone else seemed to be doing, and just find my own way, because that's really who I am. I'm the type of person that even if there's not structure, I will build that structure, and that's just kind of how I've been my entire life, and having that independence, and that's really what I wanted and needed. And so I've gotten a lot of great work out of Student Senate because of that, and it really shows when I go into job interviews and employees ask me about it. And so anyone who wants my position, you really get to do a lot with it, because you are the sole handler of the public relations besides the exec and the GA. You're the one that makes all the calls, you're the one that makes all these decisions, you're the creative house for Senate. And so that gives you a lot of space to really grow as a young public relations professional, young government affairs professional, anything in that sector that you want to do. And not only that, but even if PR isn't exactly what you want to go into, it's communications or government, it's great to have a background knowledge of how PR works for government and for government bodies, just companies in general. It's good to have that knowledge, because it sets you up for success in the future, and it sets you up for an understanding of how important communications is. So my advice on anyone interested in PR and Student Senate: do it any way you can, and even if you can't do Student Senate, find a way to get involved with another government body, even if it's just for a semester. If there's a campaign going on, do social media, do PR for that campaign, because I think that makes you stand out, and it shows that you care. So I think those are two great things to have.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.